When the internet began, bulletin board services, or BBS, became the first online communities of the so-called information superhighway. Using their phone lines, people logged in from all over America to talk about sports, games, movies, and on one BBS in particular, share their ghost stories. Over time, those communities all went dark, except for one lone server that continues to operate somewhere in an unknown part of Pennsylvania's Rust Belt. A relic of the 1990s, veiled in mystery, it is a digital archive of humanity's strangest encounters with the unknown, as told by the people who experienced them. My name is Brandon Schexnayder, and you are listening to Fear Daily.
Subject: Woman in the window. User: NopeNope31. Posted November 2nd, 1998.
The house was never meant to be mine. I just ended up with it after my grandmother died, and no one else in the family wanted to deal with the mess. It was old, brittle, and too far out for anyone with options, but I didn't have options. Just a box of my things, a rusted pickup with 3 good tires, and a head full of bad sleep. It sat across from a stretch of abandoned properties, mostly empty shells eaten up by time. One house, in particular, directly across the street, was a mirror of mine. Same bones, same porch swing, same sagging roofline, but gutted. The windows were so thick with grime, you'd swear they were painted over. No lights, no cars, just another corpse in a dying town. I didn't notice the woman at first. She showed up late one night, and I was half drunk on the couch, chain smoking and watching a busted TV that only played static and old detective tapes. The only lamp in the house was flickering, and through the haze, I caught something in the window across the street, second floor, right side. A figure. She was standing still, right up against the glass. Long hair, face pale and smooth like paper. I couldn't make out her eyes, but I knew she was looking right at me, like she had been there for hours. I killed the lamp, leaned in closer, blinked once, and she was gone. I told myself I imagined it. A shadow, light on dirty glass, but she was back. Same time, same place, like clockwork, and this time I saw her move. Just a little tilt of the head, like she was studying me, then stillness again. By the third night, I grabbed the shotgun from behind the bedroom door and stepped out onto the porch full of dumb courage. I stood there under the buzzing porch light and watched her watch me. 10 minutes passed, and she never blinked. Never breathed. Then, from across the street, she lifted one hand and tapped the glass. That was the first night I boarded up my windows. I barely slept. Every creak in the house set me off. I'd walk the floor with the shotgun like I was patrolling a war zone. I stopped turning on lights, slept in the chair by the front door with the receiver to the landline yanked out of the wall and a cigarette burning down to the filter. The next time I saw her wasn't through a window, though. It was in the screen of the turned-off TV. I'd walked into the living room just before dawn, and there she was, reflected faint and hazy in the glass, standing behind me even though I was alone. I spun around, fast, ready to shoot, but there was nothing. From that point on, Mirrors weren't safe either. I tore one off the wall and threw it into the yard, smashed the bathroom mirror with a wrench, covered every reflective surface in the house with duct tape, newspaper, and old pillowcases, even the fucking microwave. It didn't matter. She started whispering. Not words I could understand, just the sound of breath against my ear when I stood still too long. Sometimes the window frames would rattle even when the air was dead still. One night, I heard the front doorknob twitch like something was testing it, turning it slow, seeing if I'd locked it. I had, thank God, but one night, I forgot. I don't know how she got in. Still don't. I was in the kitchen, lighting a cigarette off the stove burner, when I heard a soft creak from the hall. I thought it was the floor settling until I heard it again. Closer. Footsteps, bare feet, dragging. I grabbed the shotgun and my hands were slick with sweat, heart going like a jackhammer. I stepped into the hall and saw her, just a glimpse. She was halfway up the stairs. I fired. The blast lit the walls orange and split the silence like a thunder strike, but the shot hit nothing, just drywall and shadow. When I rushed up after her, there was nothing but the smell of rot and something that sounded like distant, choking laughter. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. Somewhere in the middle of that madness, I finally opened the attic. Something had been scratching up there for a week, and I thought it was a raccoon, or maybe worse. What I found were boxes of old family junk, water damaged and half collapsed. But buried in the back under a moldy quilt was a shoebox labeled Mabel. Inside were photos, black and white, scalloped edges, my grandfather, young and proud, standing next to a woman I'd never seen before. Slender, straight-backed, with a face like a blank mask. The name on the back just said, Mabel, Summer. That was it. No one ever talked about her, but when I called my mom a few days later, she went quiet when I asked. Said my grandfather had been married before, but things ended strange. She refused to say any more. That was the last time I made a phone call from the house. That night, I barricaded the front door, dragged the dresser down the stairs, and piled it up with chairs and scrap wood. I nailed the windows shut, boarded them with whatever I could find. I slept with a hammer in one hand and a flashlight in the other. At 3:12 a.m., the microwave turned itself on. No power outage, no short. It just beeped, lit up, and flashed the word ready. When I looked, her reflection was in the door, staring at me. I lost it, tore through the kitchen like a wild animal, ripped the whole unit off the counter and threw it into the wall. I was screaming by then, screaming at her to stop, to leave me alone, and then the lights blew out, all of them. The only one left was the red glow of the broken microwave still blinking ready. I turned and she was in the hallway. Not a reflection this time. She was there, standing in the dark, barefoot, dress soaked like she'd just come up from the bottom of a lake. Her mouth opened slowly, like it was stiff from not being used. And then she smiled, a crooked, splintered thing that stretched too far, like her face didn't know how to shape it right. I raised the shotgun and pulled the trigger. It jammed. She stepped forward. I swung the butt of the gun and connected with something, but it was like hitting water. I fell backward, hit the floor hard. I scrambled toward the back door, but the chain was already locked. I don't remember how I got out. I must have blacked out because the next thing I knew, I was in the truck, hands shaking, shotgun on the passenger seat, and the front of my shirt soaked in blood that wasn't mine.
Subject, Lucid. User, xTravelerX00. Posted, December 8, 2000.
The first one I remember clear as day. I was floating over downtown St. Louis, drifting high enough to see the arch gleaming like a silver sickle. The river stretched below me, black and glassy. I should have been terrified, but instead, I laughed. I leaned forward and the air caught me, carrying me across the sky like I'd been waiting all day. And when I came down, I didn't crash. My feet touched the water, and instead of sinking, the Mississippi held me up like a solid floor. Each step sent little ripples shimmering out, but I stayed dry. I walked that river like it belonged to me. When I opened my eyes the next morning, my sheets were twisted, my chest was heaving, and for the first time in years, I couldn't wait to fall asleep again. And that kept happening. One night, I was standing on a glacier in Patagonia, the air sharp and thin, ice cracking under my boots. Another, I was in Havana, dancing to a street band as lanterns swayed overhead. But the ones that shook me most were the quiet ones. I'd find myself in my grandmother's kitchen, a place that shouldn't have existed anymore. She'd be there humming Patsy Cline, the smell of lemon soap hanging in the air. I'd sit with her, eat fig cookies, and feel the warmth of her hand when she reached across the table. It was real. Too real, and soon I started to crave it. Nights became more important than days. I'd drag myself through work, through errands and bills, and all the gray noise of living just to get back to where the colors were brighter and the people I missed were waiting for me. But cracks started to show. There were places I came back to. Streets that didn't change from night to night. A vendor on the same corner, tipping his cap like he knew me. A hotel with green wallpaper where the desk clerk always said, "Evening, sir," like he'd said it 100 times before. And there was also the girl. I don't know when I first noticed her. She was always just there, in the background, watching. Big brown eyes, dark hair tied back. The same blue dress every time. Sometimes she'd be sitting on a stoop. Sometimes staring from a window. She never spoke, never smiled, just followed me with her eyes. I tried to ignore her. Told myself it was my brain recycling images, a quirk of sleep, but the longer it went, the more I felt like she was waiting for something. Then came the man in the red coat. It was in a city that looked like Chicago, but wasn't. The buildings leaned wrong, the lake was still as glass, and the sky hung too low. He was waiting under a flickering street lamp, tall and thin, with a smile like he already knew me. His coat was velvet, dark red, with buttons that glinted like embers. "It's good to see you finally remembering," he said. Remembering what? He didn't answer, just laughed, a rough sandpaper sound that followed me into waking. After that, the dreams shifted. I stopped being the one in control. Sometimes I'd find myself mid-conversation with people I didn't know. Other times I'd look down and my hands weren't mine. Older, scarred. Once I woke to find a faint mark still on my skin, only to watch it fade as the morning went on. The girl started appearing closer. She sat across from me in a diner once, though no one else seemed to notice her. She leaned in and whispered, "You shouldn't stay here." "Why?" I asked. "They're pulling you through." "Who is?" She didn't answer, just touched my chest with her small hand and said, "You're starting to forget which side you're on." I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, and for the first time I was afraid to close my eyes again, but I couldn't help it. The nights without dreams felt like suffocating. I'd lie in the dark, twitching, desperate to be pulled back. Then one night, I got nothing. Just black, 8 hours of void. When I woke, it felt like something precious had been stolen from me. The next night, I finally slipped through. I was standing in a field under a violet sky. The stars arranged in constellations I didn't recognize. The air smelled of oranges and iron. The girl was there, crying this time, tears streaking her dusty cheeks. "I tried to warn you," she whispered. That was when I felt it, the presence behind me. I turned and it was standing there. At first glance, it looked like a man, tall, pale, black suit, but its outline shimmered like heat off asphalt, as if my eyes couldn't hold it still. Its eyes were holes, endless and hollow, and when it spoke, it wasn't words, it was memory. Floods of images poured into me, symbols carved into stone, fires burning in caverns, creatures riding over one another in a place where the sky bled red. "You came willingly," it said. "You fed the tether." My legs locked. My throat burned. I didn't know, I managed. "But you do now." It stepped closer, and I felt my mind stretch thin as thread, thoughts slipping loose. My own name didn't sound right in my head anymore. The girl grabbed my hand, her voice urgent, "You still have time." And suddenly, I was on a bridge. To my left, the dream city shimmered, alive with color and joy, the streets I knew, the faces I loved, my grandmother's kitchen light glowing faintly in the distance, and to my right, a narrow tunnel stretched into darkness. Plain, cold, empty, but I knew it was real. The red-coated man stood behind me now, his coal-bright buttons burning in the dim. "You'll never be happy over there," he said. "Not truly. You'll crave us. You'll crawl back." I turned to the girl. "Can you come with me?" She shook her head, flickering like static. I was never really here. The wind rose. The bridge trembled. My foot hovered over the edge. I closed my eyes, drew in a breath, and that's where I'll stop, because maybe I stepped forward. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm still standing there waiting, and maybe tonight when you close your eyes, you'll find me on that bridge asking which way we should go.
Fear Daily is an independent podcast hosted by Brandon Schexnayder and written by Brennan Storr, with Joanna Smith serving as the consulting editor, audio production by Rachel Boyd, and sound design by Southern Gothic Media. This podcast is a work of fiction. Names, characters, places, and incidents are either products of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to real events or locations, is entirely coincidental. Ad-free versions of Fear Daily are available now on your favorite podcast apps. For more information, visit feardaily.com. But move fast, before the server goes offline.